Okay, we're live.
Awesome.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. It is 5 p.m. Pacific time, so hopefully we're not catching the Wednesday happy hour crew off guard. My name's Ruby from Real Dog Box, and I'm here with Dr. Katie Woodley. You guys probably know her as the natural pet doctor. Tonight, we're going to be talking about canines and cancer, our beloved dogs. And unfortunately, it's a very sad, but I think timely and realistic topic for many of us to be talking about. So, thank you, Dr. Katie, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ruby. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, while we wait for others to trickle in, I'll just introduce myself real quick. I think we have a few new viewers. I'm the founder of Real Dog Box. We make and deliver a monthly box of air dried treats and chews and offer our members nutrition consultation services so we can help you feed real food. I think you guys probably know Dr. Katie as the natural pet doctor, which I did too for a long time until I realized that we had a mutual friend and colleague, Kay Stewart, who is one of our dog nutrition researchers and writers and working on our upcoming Feed Real Raw Nutrition course. She's been writing for us for almost a year now, and she shared that she was one of your advisors at Notre Dame.
She is the reason why I got into vet medicine. She was my pre-vet advisor, and she is actually the reason why I went to vet school in New Zealand. So yeah, so I get goosebumps because it's amazing how like full circle it comes and how we're all so connected. And yeah, Kay, if you're listening, I'm so glad you reached out, and it's so neat because honestly, she kickstarted my vet career, and I probably wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for Kay.
Wow, wow. Why New Zealand?
Yeah, so I was applying to vet schools, and one of the vet students that was currently in the vet program over there, she was American. She came across to do a talk I was at the University of Notre Dame, and to talk about the school because no one like really knew about it, Massey University. However, it's accredited. So it's like going to Colorado State University. You take the same licensing exam at the end. So
Mhm.
it's not like you have to go through more schooling and it's a lot harder. You have to take more tests. So Kay was like, you should go and listen to this. I think you'll find it really interesting. And I went to that talk and I started researching it. And I was like, I want to go to New Zealand. I want to go to vet school. This is perfect. So I applied and it became my number one. And I ended up getting in there. So
Wow.
yeah, I was like on a mission to go to New Zealand. I had no idea about New Zealand, or like, I thought it was tropical, and it's definitely not tropical.
It's not.
I got there and it was really cold, and like it was a good learning life experience. So
Yeah. I've been to New Zealand only once, and it was not what I was expecting. It's a lot of land, a lot of open area.
there's more sheep than people. So
Is
really,
that
like
a fact?
truly there are. Yeah, that's a fact. There's like 9 million sheep. So yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, for some of our new viewers here, typically our lives last about an hour, and Dr. Katie and I are going to chat for about 30 minutes or so and then do a Q&A at the end. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to pop them into the comments. Don't worry, you don't have to wait until the second 30 minutes. And if you have to run, we will also be posting this. So we will try our best to get to all of your questions in order. Since Kay and I have been working together, I feel like she sort of experienced this paradigm shift of a new way of teaching, learning medicine. She, I think, spent the majority of her career not even considering a raw food diet and some of these preventative measures that we often hear are not addressed or really taught in vet school. But I didn't go to vet school, so I
It's not
can't
taught
say
in
for
vet
sure.
school.
Um,
Not taught in vet school.
Yeah, but there's always talks about that, like, vets don't learn a lot about nutrition. It's not part of their primary curriculum. Can you sort of tell me about your journey into holistic practice, preventative medicine?
Yeah. So my journey So essentially, I started out as a conventional veterinarian. We are not taught this in vet school. I literally took 1 week of a special interest, like touching on some holistic modalities because I was interested in it, didn't really know much about it. I knew I'd be back in the United States at some point, and I knew there were a lot of people that were interested in that way. So I wanted to kind of know a little bit about what people were asking. But other than that, I had no experience. And so I went into practice and practiced, I prescribed the kibble diets and, the big brands and did all that stuff and used a lot of antibiotics. And I unfortunately told a lot of people like there's nothing else we can do for chronic illnesses and things like cancer. And when we moved back to the States, this was at the beginning of my career. So about 2 years in after graduating. So 6 months after moving back, my husband developed an autoimmune disease. And that was a game changer. So we went down the whole path of being told there's nothing else you can do. You need to go on strong immunosuppressive drugs. They don't work very well. Some of the side effects are actually death. And so that was very, very scary. And anytime we would question, does food matter for a gut autoimmune disease, we were laughed at, we were shamed, we were told, like, you're wrong, you can read anything on the internet. And so we ended up going down the rabbit hole of being like, there's got to be something else we can do. And through that process, I found holistic medicine. I found essential oils. We learned a lot about nutrition. We learned about herbs and supplements. And from that, I realized I was doing exactly what happened to us on the human side to my pet patients.
Yeah.
And so I said, I can do so much better. And that's when I became acupuncture certified. I ended up becoming certified in Chinese herbal medicine. I've become food therapy certified now. And I also use a lot of essential oils in animals, both dogs and cats. And I'm constantly learning. And this led me to a few years back starting my own business, The Natural Pet Doctor, because I love this side of medicine so much. And it's so much better to tell people that there's hope, that there are other options that we can use, and that we have tools in our toolbox other than drugs that are only treating symptoms. And now we're treating the root cause, and we're also creating health, and we're creating longevity and helping pets live much longer, which we all want. So that's a brief summary of like the crazy path that I took finding holistic medicine.
What do your former colleagues think about the direction that you've taken?
Well, I think so there's some colleagues that are very conventional, will never be open to hearing about this. And it is what it is. You have that on the human side and also on the vet side. And then there's the colleagues that are on the fence and they're kind of watching and they're seeing you make these changes in these animals and they're seeing the results. And they're going, what are you doing? And they start asking questions. And so now in Fort Collins, where I'm at, I have some vets that I'll partner with for the conventional side that aren't holistic, but they're super open to learning and they value what the client wants and there's no shaming and they're very open. And so it's one of those areas where people are always like, well, why don't you like force it onto them? And I'm like, it's going to come with time. Sometimes it does take pain for you to see it, right? That's probably a lot of people's journeys here. Like a pet got sick and you tried the conventional, it didn't work, and you were forced to find an alternative because you were determined. And that was my journey and story. And that's how I found it. And sometimes that's what we need for us to like be more open and become aware that there's other ways to treat the body, to support healing and all of that. So, I think with the movement that's currently happening, it's super exciting. Like with what you're doing, Ruby, showcasing like real food matters, real nutrition, how to support our carnivores, how to like properly feed dogs and cats, less processed food. And what we're seeing as pets are going to have less disease, live longer lives, and conventional vets will have to see that. And also too, they lose clients if they're not open to seeing that. There's more and more of us. We need more of us, but we're creating a movement and people are getting more options and they can go elsewhere. So that's really exciting to see that there's more people on board with this movement of holistic medicine and real food nutrition.
For sure. And I think another thing is, even if they don't completely agree, they have to be able to have that conversation with their client. They have to at least entertain the thought and say, people are doing this, but it's not, doesn't always work. And that's what I, in my experience, have seen in the consultations that we do with a lot of people is this: my vet just won't support any of these, so I have no one else to talk to. It's so unfortunate.
Yeah.
You are an integrative holistic veterinarian. What does that mean exactly? How is that different from a conventional veterinarian?
Yeah, so I have the conventional training. I have all the conventional knowledge. I know the science, I know the drugs, I know how they work. And then on the other side, so that's what we would call Western medicine.
Mm-hmm.
The downside with Western medicine is we're typically treating symptoms. And that's why we have such limited results, especially with chronic illnesses and specifically cancer. It can be really hard to get those pets back to optimal health. We kind of stay stuck in that vicious cycle, right? On the other side, so we have our Eastern medicine or holistic medicine, where we use other approaches like acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, homeopathy, chiropractic, essential oils. Uh, I don't see the thing, I don't lump nutrition into it, but it kind of is because we're trained to we're trained to recommend processed food diets. But it's
Mm-hmm.
taking a more holistic approach. And I always say with a W, where we're looking at the entire body and how everything is interconnected. And when we do that, we get a very different path of healing and supporting the body. So we're looking for root causes of disease, or how do we support the body so we prevent disease in the first place. So when you hear about like an integrative vet, we're able to tap into both sides of medicine and
Mm-hmm.
integrate them, because there's a time and a place for conventional medicine. I am not against drugs. I will never be against drugs when we use them appropriately and when we need to use them. So I always say, like, let's say, for example, your dog runs outside or runs after a squirrel and it gets hit by a car. You don't want me doing acupuncture on your dog. You want to go
Right.
to the vet and you want to get support and stabilized and all the things that we need to do, and probably some pain medications on board, right? We need immediate results right away to support them. And then what we do after that to help the body is we can use supplements, we can use herbs to help, we can use homeopathy, we can use acupuncture, physiotherapy, whatever that pet needs to get the body back into balance. So with integrative, we're tapping into both sides of healing and helping the pet and using all the tools in the toolbox to get the best results for the pet.
I love that. I think it's just so important to look at the big picture. You can't, attack things one at a time. So I invited you here to talk about canine cancer and prevention. I previously read that 1 in 4 dogs get cancer. And I shared with you a little earlier that our Doberman also had suffered and survived testicular cancer. So it is a very sensitive topic, I think, for a lot of people who are joining us this evening.
Hmm.
What sort of statistics are you seeing
Hmm.
nowadays in your practice?
It's unfortunately higher than that. So we're seeing 60% of dogs at some point in their life will develop cancer. It is the leading cause of death in dogs over the age of 2. That's how crazy it is. I see
Two?
2 years old.
Oh my
2.
gosh.
I see I see more like younger animals getting cancer. Like I just talked to someone today on a consult, and their dog was 3 and already had cancer.
Is
And
it a specific, like a certain type of cancer that is more common than others?
no, it's not. I mean, I think what we see most of are going to be things like lymphoma is really common. We see a lot of hemangiosarcoma. So those are the tumors in the spleen that bleed. So those are usually found on an emergency. And I see a lot of mast cell tumors. Those are really,
Mm,
really common. And here's the thing, when we look at like why does cancer happen, there's a lot of factors. So we call it multifactorial. And when we look at how the world is and how we're going, right? We live in a toxic world. Unfortunately, we're all being exposed to herbicides, pesticides, things like glyphosate, which is Roundup, a crazy statistic with glyphosate. So even if you're not spraying these, 90% of the Earth's rainwater has glyphosate in it. So we're drinking it, it's raining on us, we're coming into contact with these things.
Yeah.
And what's happening too is that these are having an effect on the way we absorb nutrients, vitamins,
Hmm.
minerals. They combine to heavy metals. Those aren't good for our body. So it's increasing the level of inflammation and what we call oxidative stress. So where the cells are working overtime, and it's creating a lot of inflammation in the body. If we don't clear inflammation, inflammation's useful, we need it, right? Like, so acute inflammation, say you cut yourself, right? We need acute inflammation for the body to mount an immune response and
Hmm.
heal it. So we get like the red irritation, and then it eventually resolves and we get a little scar and things like that. But what can happen is, and this is commonly happening now, especially with dogs, and we'll talk about nutrition, how that plays a part, is that they're having chronic inflammation. So that acute inflammation is not being resolved because of all these different factors. And it continues. And it's actually affecting the way genes are expressed in the body. And we're getting cancerous changes in the cells. And so cancer is actually starting a long time before we even see it, because we don't always see the symptoms.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. And that's why it's so important that we take the preventative actions prior. We don't want to wait and see and wait for symptoms. We want to take action before. And so food is a huge part, especially if we're feeding ultra processed diets like kibbles. Stress, we know that emotional health has a huge impact on the level of inflammation. It directly connects with gut health, where the microbiome lives. And
Hmm.
even just being stressed can create leaky gut and cause that microbiome, where all those trillions of bacteria, protozoa, fungi, and cells should be working really happily together, get unbalanced, and then it leads to more inflammation in the body. So all of these things are interconnected, and it's so easy to miss something, right? You could be feeding a raw food diet that's perfectly
Hmm.
balanced, but if your household's really stressful, or you're using a lot of flea and tick products, and you're not supporting detox pathways, it's so easy to miss something. And then all of a sudden you're like, why did that happen?
Yeah.
And we have to take a step back and look at how are all these things interconnected.
Sure. I think we hear that a lot, that, my dog is raw fed and I did everything that I thought I could, but still it's happening. And it's unfortunate because it seems like a lot of these factors are just out of our control. I think I read, even if you don't use any sort of pesticide or Roundup in your own lawn, just from the wind alone, if you've got neighbors 100 yards away, it's somehow going to end up in your yard or in the air.
Hmm.
So it almost sounds like what you're saying is these toxins in the environment are unavoidable.
They are, but here's the thing. So what you just mentioned, where, okay, so genetics are going to play like 5 to 10%, right? We can't always control that. The neat thing is, though, is there's this entire field of nutrigenomics where food can actually change the way genes are expressed.
Hmm.
So even that right there, I'm like, okay, like that's not even solid, right? And
Yeah.
then we have
This is
about,
one of my favorite books.
yes, Canine
Canine. Yeah.
Nutrigenomics by Gene Dodds. It's everyone should read that because it's
Yes.
empowering. And here's the thing though, 90% is environmental and lifestyle. We
Mm,
can make an impact on that. So even though we talk a lot about toxins, because when we become aware of something, we can do something about it. That's the key. So it's not meant to scare people. It's
right.
meant to make them more aware. So then that way you can look at, okay, for heartworm preventative. I'm not against heartworm preventative in areas where there's heartworm, right? But if you're in, say, Colorado and you get snow, do you really need to be using that year round? And
Right.
also, too, the fact that it lasts for 55 days, we don't actually have to treat every single month. And so we can actually go to every 45 days. And then on top of that, we know that it's a chemical because it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. But then we can support detox pathways
Hmm.
with different types of whole foods, different supplements. And that way we're supporting the body. So it's less likely to set up a chronic inflammatory state that can eventually lead to cancer or other chronic illnesses. So that's how I look at, like, okay, what are these factors? Okay, we know about those. So what can we do? Because we're more aware. And that way we can support our pets. So it's not always a doom and gloom situation where we're stuck and there's nothing we can do. So why even try, right? That's a very
Right.
disempowering situation to be in.
Well, I have a feeling that a lot of people that are joining this live, for them, it might be too late, or they might be feeling like it's too late because their dog already had cancer, or they've had someone in their past. I've seen Marilyn says, I've had dogs for 40 plus years and lost all of them to cancer, but I've also had cats, but when they passed, it was never from cancer. Are dogs more susceptible to cancer? I didn't see that question coming, but here we are.
Yeah, so Marilyn, I'm so sorry about your pets, and my personal story. So I talk a lot about Finn, my German Shepherd, and he developed a brain tumor a few years back, and we were essentially in a similar spot like a lot of pet parents where he wasn't responding to the medications. We knew about the tumor because he started having seizures. And so we had to get the seizures to stop. And we put him on conventional drugs. He did not respond well. He wouldn't eat for the first time. He had vomiting, diarrhea, couldn't walk. It was awful. He was a mess. And so I literally said, what else can we do? And we had pet insurance. So like we literally could have taken him to CSU and done brain surgery on this dog. And we were told there's nothing else you can do. Take him home, love on him, bring him back in a few days to a week, probably at most. And I said, nope, we're going to do the things I know. And we ended up gaining an extra year of really good quality of life with him that we weren't expecting. So just because they have cancer, so say this is your day one and you're just learning about these other modalities, there is still hope that you can make a huge difference in their life. And yes, we know probably their time is a little bit limited, but with Finn, I cherished every moment because I had no idea when his last day would be. And so time slows down a bit. You change around your schedule sometimes, right? Because your priorities shift and adjust. So even if you have gotten a cancer diagnosis, it doesn't mean like this is it. There's nothing you can do. And to answer Marilyn's question about like, are dogs more susceptible to cancer? I don't think they are. I've had 2 cats with cancer long before I started doing holistic medicine. So that was super disappointing. But like Ruby and I were talking about before going live, the thing is that all these pets that I've had that have died from cancer, they're part of my legacy now. And they taught me so many important lessons that now with my 3 cats that we have, things are very different from day one. We got a senior cat, so I can't change her past, but I know that I can put her right away on a raw food diet. I can supplement her based on her life stage, on what other things are going on in her body. With our kitten that we adopted, he was started right away on a raw food, never touch your kibble diet. I didn't want to even go there with him getting kibble addicted. And so that's where there's lessons that we can learn from them, and that's how they live on through your current pets. So I never want people to feel like the guilt or the extreme sadness, because day one is now and you have more knowledge and more tools than you did yesterday. So you can make a huge difference for them.
Yeah. And once you know, you can't unknow.
Yeah, that's true. you don't want to go backwards, right?
Kibble addicted. I have not heard that term, but I like it. And I'm going to start using it.
Yeah, cats definitely. I know we're talking about dogs, but cats definitely. Kibble is like the worst thing for them.
Yeah.
And if they've been
And the
on
kidney
kibble,
disease that we see so often in cats.
yep, it's dehydrating, it's high in carbs. I mean, both dogs and cats have zero requirements for carbohydrates. And it's one of those things where unfortunately we've been essentially brainwashed to think that we should be feeding these types of diets. That's what we're taught in vet school. We're terrified if you don't know better or you haven't done the research or further training as a veterinarian, you're terrified you're going to recommend something that's going to harm a pet. And so that's why they stick with the familiar and like it's better than an unbalanced diet, right? But that's where a lot of pet parents come up against that wall when they're at the vet clinic and they want to do something different. They don't know where to start. And they're literally in the same place as you are. Yeah. So that's the hard part.
No, for sure. I was talking with Kay about that, and the course that we're designing, she's hoping to get race certified specifically for vets and vet technicians to just feel more comfortable just even talking about the subject. And fortunately, with you, other vets like Nick Thompson, around just talking about a different way of doing things, I hope will make it a lot easier for them to broach that topic. Maybe holistic medicine becomes an elective in vet school.
Yeah, there are some vet schools. I believe Florida State, they have more of a holistic
Hmm.
curriculum. So that's nice to see. And then also too, a lot of schools are endorsing like acupuncture. And
Mm.
so like when we go to like our annual vet conference, it's nice to see more and more students that are coming through and experiencing that, because we need so many more people. I mean, my fear is that we have a lot of older holistic vets that are going to be retiring, and we've seen that through like this period of time, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people left the industry, and it's leaving a huge gap for vet care in general,
Sure.
especially on the holistic side.
Yeah. Well, for all you guys in here that are considering vet school, we need you. Don't give
And go and just deal with the 4 years, and then make sure you're learning on the side. It'll be really hard, I know, but you'll get there and it'll be worth it at the end, I promise.
up. And
And
go
then
to New Zealand.
yes, yes, you can go to New Zealand too. It's wonderful.
So you said something that caught my attention that I hope I don't forget to hit on, the detox pathways.
Mhm,
But before we jump into that, how can we prevent cancer? I mean, what are some easy things that we can remember and
mhm.
just try to implement into our life? Because as you mentioned, it's a lifestyle. You know, we
It
can't
is.
just flip our world upside down. People ask me all the time, should I be feeding organic, grass fed, pasture raised? And I'm like, dude, don't
If
kill
you
yourself.
can, but, like, yeah, like, if that's your first step, like,
Right.
that's really stressful, right? Especially
Yeah,
right
and it
now.
feels out of reach for so
Yeah,
many people, so they're like, "I'm just gonna do what I'm comfortable, what I feel good doing."
yeah.
How what can they do differently? What kind of foods can you recommend for cancer prevention?
Yeah, so your biggest thing is that there's a lot of research now, which is great. So that really helps us, especially when you wanna talk to your veterinarian. Um, I don't have it next to me, but I highly recommend everyone get Dr. Connor Brady, his book, Feeding Dogs, and you
Yeah.
can, like, gift that to your vet because there's a ton of research in it. So it's not just someone saying, like, "Oh, you should feed raw, it's better." It's, like, actually telling you why and the science behind it. So Feeding Dogs by Dr. Connor Brady. But the way I look at health, so gut health and nutrition is a huge pillar. Nutrition is gonna directly affect gut health, and this is where we know processed food diets. So when I say process, what this means is we have like ultra processed, which is going to be like your kibble. It's cooked at really high heat temperatures. The problem with that is, for one, the ingredients are usually pretty poor quality. There's a lot of chemicals. We don't know the quality of the meat. It can be things like roadkill, dead animals, diseased, down cows, down animals. There can be cancer in like the meats, everything. So essentially what it's classified as feed grade, not food grade. Food grade is human food grade. So think about the things that we can't eat and aren't, which aren't healthy for us, are actually going to our pets. So our pets are like a trash can, unfortunately, with the pet food industry. And so what they're doing is they're taking the slurry of poor quality meats and they're cooking at really high heat temperatures. And what happens is because the high heat temperatures, we're having a chemical reaction where there's things like advanced glycation end products that are being formed. And these are actually known carcinogens. So carcinogens meaning it can cause cancer down the road. So this is why if we can move like even just one step down from these really ultra processed foods. So typically your kibbles in a bag that you can buy at your vet or at a pet store. Those are going to be your ultra processed. So there's some companies too that will do like baked that won't be cooked at high heat. So that would be one step down, still a processed. Then we have things like canned foods. We have things like freeze dried. We have pre-made cooked foods. There's homemade cooked foods. And then we have your raw. So raw will be your least processed. This is going to have all the all the enzymes intact. It's not going to be affected by cooking. So vitamins and minerals are good. So ideally that diet. Now, I always say raw is not for everyone. And some pets don't do well with raw, especially like older dogs. And there's ways to cope with that. But this is where if you're feeding a kibble diet, what I want you to start with is something super simple. Just start adding fresh food toppers to that. This is literally, hopefully you're eating some fresh food yourself. If you're not, I'm gonna tell you, like, your first step is to start feeding yourself better fresh food too. And then keep some left over for your dogs. And literally, this is going to be things like lightly steamed veggies. So broccoli, carrots, kale, spinach. And I like lightly steamed, or you can put it in a food processor or blender and blitz it up, because what you want to do is break down the cellulose or the plant walls to make it easier for your dog to digest, because they're not like us. They're not omnivores. Look at their teeth structure. They're not grinding up that food. And that's really important to keep in mind. So we want to make it easier. This is why, like, you give a dog a blueberry and he poops out a blueberry, right?
Right.
He's not grinding it up. So we want to make it easier for them to absorb the nutrients.
Where does meat fall in that? Like, lightly cooked, is that one step above raw?
Yes. So that's lightly, like, it's kind of like cooked is processing it a little bit, right? Like, we see the chemical change. Like, an egg is a great example. Like, if we either feed like a raw egg yolk, but if you lightly cook it, like, you literally see the egg white turn white, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are seeing chemical reactions that can change the way that the vitamins and minerals are in that food. So our pets, when we think about it, our dogs, we go back to how they were, right, before we came into the picture. They're used to eating raw food. Dogs don't get sick when they take a bone and they bury it in the backyard and they leave it there, right? And they dig it back up and they chew on it, and you're like, oh, is that good? Like, they're actually okay with that. And so there's a huge fear, and this is where a lot of vets create a lot of fear with the worry of, you're going to get E. coli, you're going to get salmonella poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
And so our dogs, the way they are physiologically, they're made to process raw food. They have shorter intestinal tracts. They have higher stomach acid, the pH of the stomach acid. And so, lower pH. And so it actually digests it really quickly. It passes through very quickly. Unlike us, if we were to eat that, we have a longer digestive tract. We get sick. And so if you're worried about it and you're cooking for yourself right now, do exactly the same thing. Wash your hands, wash the materials. Like, don't lick your hands after, like, touching the like raw meat. Like, those are things you would do for your normal food prep. Same thing applies to your pets. So, but that's the easiest way to start improving your dog's diet if you are feeding a kibble diet. Now, if you're feeding like a lightly cooked and it's working for you, that's okay. I'm okay with you doing a lightly cooked. My biggest thing is make sure that it's balanced if you're doing a homemade diet, because a lot of times, over time, not every meal has to be balanced, but over time, if we're not balancing it, I find calcium tends to be low, magnesium's low, manganese is commonly missed, your iodine's left out, vitamin E, vitamin D. So those are some of the common nutrients that are missing when we do a homemade diet. They can't eat like meat and vegetables like we do, and some rice. Like, that is not a balanced diet for a dog.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Ground turkey and rice, or chicken and rice and broccoli.
You're like, well, I mean, you're getting there. And this is the hard part too, because a lot of people start, like, and there's probably pet parents here that have learned that they need to change and they're scared, right? And so they switch 100% to just that type of food, and they see an improvement in their pets, and their pets start wanting the food again. Because a lot of dogs that are on kibble, they're picky. They don't want to eat it. That happened to Finn. Like, we had him on kibble. That was part of my learning process through this. And he would literally spit the kibble out and look at you. And I was like, it's like acid you're eating. Like, it's like, it was like the worst thing watching him. And then we started doing a home cooked. We did some raw with him, and this dog would literally dance for his food. And so, but just because you're seeing health improvements doesn't mean that the diet is balanced over the long term. So that's where there's a lot of great resources, like, with Real Dog Box and the amazing work that you're doing. A lot of us help balance diets. There's a lot of great free resources online that can help guide you in making sure that over the long term that you are adding in, the right vitamins and minerals to balance it.
Definitely, for sure. Fortunately, I recognize a lot of names in the comments here, who a few of you are our members that I know are raw feeders. Perfect. And so whoever's replaying this live later on, at least you know what to do. So we've switched to a fresh food diet. And assuming that we're all feeding a balanced diet and it has all the components that we want to include, are there supplements that we can add in to help prevent disease?
100%. So this is where I love food is medicine. And so we're already feeding a fresh diet, which is great. And this is where we can add in and rotate variety and also use certain types of foods that are going to be higher in phytonutrients and antioxidants. So those are the things that are going to help reduce inflammation, support cellular health, that are going to support those detox pathways that we'll talk more about. So I love using blueberries. They're great. If you can, make sure they're organic because they can be heavily sprayed if they're not, but still, like blueberries are great. Pomegranates are
Mm.
another great one. And they actually feed a really good beneficial bacteria in the gut called Akkermansia. And a lot of us, people and pets, are lacking this. And it's a really important beneficial bacteria to support the immune system. And so pomegranate directly feeds that strain. And if you can't find fresh, what you can do, I get mine frozen at the like natural food stores. So make sure you check those out. And then that way they last longer. You can just pull it out and mix it into the food. Also, I love using foods that are high in sulfur compounds. So the reason why is that the sulfur compounds are helping to support those detox pathways in the liver. So those are going to clear the toxins that we all know we're coming into contact with. And so these are going to be things like traditionally a lot of people use broccoli, right? So
Mhm.
your cruciferous vegetables are high in sulfur. So broccoli, your cauliflower, your Brussels sprouts. But I love doing my own thing. I love being able to like grow things and see it. And so I actually do a lot of like broccoli sprouts or daikon radish sprouts, and they're so easy to make at home. All you
Mhm.
have to do is Google like how to sprout stuff. Super easy and very like inexpensive. And they have a higher concentration of sulfur in them. And you only need a tiny, so you can chop it up, you can throw it in the food, and you're so that way you're rotating through these different types of foods. So you're adding variety throughout the week, but we're also better supporting their body and helping to optimize health. And other toppers that I tend to use too are going to be things like your canned sardines or fresh sardines are a great whole food source. They're a great source of omega 3s. And they're going to be lower in heavy metals too because they're a smaller fish. And then I love also rotating in eggs. So eggs are just another great whole food source to help balance diets, but also to add in extra nutrients and vitamins too. So those are some easy ones that a lot of people can find, not crazy types of foods. Pomegranates might be a little crazy, but I would definitely recommend starting to rotate those in. So that would be using whole food.
Yeah, and I think even more than that, these are all foods. Everything that you mentioned are foods that I can eat,
Yeah.
in shares. So it doesn't feel like I'm going out to buy all these extravagant supplements just to
Mhm.
take care of my dog. I see a lot of questions coming in, which I do want to get to.
Yep.
But my question before we move on from this topic is the pet owner whose dog won't touch fruits or vegetables with a 10-foot pole.
Yes. And so this is where what I would try first, and this depends, this will be individual, right? So people who are asking that question might have already tried this, but this is where I blend things up. So you can
Mhm.
blend it. So you're not just, because I'll see pictures where like they leave the blueberries, right? They're like, what the heck is this? I'm not eating this. So
Yeah.
you can actually blend it up and make essentially a slurry and then mix it in. And then you can also add in things that are more tasty that they like bone broth is a great option that you can mix in. You can also use like if there's and special treats like you can you can mix these all together to add extra flavor to it. So you just have to get a little bit creative, but sometimes changing the texture of those foods can make a big difference. If you can't do that, this is where you can use supplements.
Okay.
So this is where I would go, and I use supplements too, but I find people tend to go a little crazy with supplements sometimes, and then all of a sudden the food bowl is supplements and we're over supplementing, and it's just and it gets really expensive too for another reason.
Right.
So this is where if we're worried about your detox pathways, we can add in things like milk thistle, and we can use that around the times that maybe we are having to use like a heartworm preventative or we need to better support like during a period of stress, or they have a dental cleaning and we know they're going to be processing anesthesia. So we can actually add in milk thistle, we can add in dandelion, we can add in burdock root. You can use the whole food forms of those too if you
I've
want
seen
to.
all three of those both in powder and tincture form. Do you
Mhm.
recommend one over the other?
Just depends on what your pet's easier to get into them. So one of the brands I really like is Animal Essentials. So I recommend that a lot because it's a glycerin tincture. So it's not an alcohol based tincture. So it doesn't taste awful. And it's pretty well accepted by both dogs and cats. And they have quite a few different detox blends. They have milk thistle by itself. They have quite a range, which I really like. And Greg Tilford, who makes that product, he's amazing. And it's a great quality product. So you don't necessarily like, it doesn't matter if you're using powder or a tincture. It just depends on the size of your pet and the dosing that you would use too. Because sometimes your capsules, especially if you are using human supplements, it can be really hard to dose that appropriately
Mm-hmm.
for a small dog.
Definitely. For your detox pathway, is that something we should be considering to do all the time, or just when our dogs are heavily processing something?
Yeah, so because we live in a toxic world, right? Unfortunately, this is something where doing like a great easy way to set up like detoxes would be a quarterly detox. So this
Okay.
is where the foods you're already using, you're supporting gut health. That is a detox pathway. So liver, we need to support liver, we need to support kidneys, we need to support gut, and also we need to support the skin. Those are the four major pathways that we're detoxing through, that toxins need to get out. And if one of those systems is backed up, unfortunately our bodies are going to recirculate those toxins and store them. And so in the liver specifically, there's different phases of detox. And when we're feeding an optimal diet, like a fresh food diet that's balanced, this is where B vitamins are essential, where we're making sure there's vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin E, your N-acetylcysteine. There's different things that are going to optimize those pathways that we can actually supplement in to help support and make sure that the liver is doing its job. So what I go back to, first, use your food as medicine, right? So that's where we can use the phytonutrients and the antioxidants in foods. So a lot of your cruciferous vegetables will help support the liver detox pathways. So think about it. You're just using food and you're giving them a nice gentle detox and supporting the body every single day with that. And then every quarter, so season changes, right? Easy way to remember this. This is when you can use a little bit more like milk thistle, or you can add in, maybe you're bathing them and you're grooming them. This is where you're brushing the fur and you can use soaks and things like that. There's a lot of different ways that you can do a quarterly detox. But I think the biggest thing is like, if this stresses you out, don't get crazy with it if you're adding in fresh foods and you're using the principle of food as medicine. I think that's the biggest thing I want to have people take home from this talk, is that you literally can use food as medicine. You don't have to throw in 15 supplements and make things crazy and expensive for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I often tell people that whenever they ask what I supplement with, it's whatever I remember that day. Because I don't like to have this whole spreadsheet or protocol to
Yep.
follow. I kind of like to go with the flow.
There's a word
Uh,
for that. So
what is
it's you're pulse treating them. You're pulse dosing it. So it's actually a technique. That's what I do with my cats. So I have all different supplements and I'm like, oh, let's do some liver and kidney support today. Oh, let's add in some medicinal mushrooms today. And
Yeah,
I will literally, they don't get the same thing every single day and they're healthy. So I'm supporting different life stages too. And my older
right.
cat, I support her kidneys more, but you're literally like pulse treating it. You're not, this is where I think the body gets used to supplements and it doesn't work as well. So we
Right.
don't want to use things like milk thistle every day. We want to give the body a break. And so that way it's not, you kind of keep it guessing and the body works better when we do that rather
Sure.
than it just adjusting and being like, oh, okay, we're getting that again. Okay. So that's actually a really good thing. And also, so for people, if you're like forgetting to do stuff, this is your path. This is the okay, like you're doing it right. It's okay. Obviously with like drugs, if they're on steroids or antibiotics, that's not what you want to do. But for holistic medicine and a lot of supplements and fresh foods, that's an easy way to do it.
All right, I'm diving into the questions. This is a big one. Hi, Tina. She's an old friend. So my dog is 5.5-year-old bulldog and has now had mast cell tumors removed. The first one 6 months ago came back as stage 2, and he had one removed this week, which was a stage 1. He is raw fed and has been since he was 1 year old. He doesn't take any kind of flea medication, but has had skin allergies, ear infections, eye infections. What sort of things can I do to prevent these mast cell tumors from popping up in the first place?
Yep. This is a common problem. And as I mentioned too, I don't know if you were here, Tina, at the very start, I see a lot of mast cell tumors. And so it's great that he's raw fed because I can't even imagine what it'd be like if he wasn't. And so with bulldogs especially, we are probably dealing with some genetic component, unfortunately, with like a weaker immune system. There's probably some hormonal imbalances too. What I would be doing, and I don't know what supplements he's on, but we need to make sure we're supporting gut health. So this is where there's a test that you can actually do from animal biome, and you can check the microbiome to see what's the level of dysbiosis. So what that means is, are the bad bacteria outnumbering the good? You can also assess the diversity of the different strains within the gut. So we want a lot of diversity. And a lot of times, through probably everything that your dog's been going through, Tina, there's probably been drugs and anesthesia, and that can wipe out the microbiome. So that test is really helpful for getting an idea of, okay, how severe is this? Gives you also an idea of like what to focus on. They do have fecal transplant capsules you can use, but this is also where feeding variety. So making sure we're getting good variety in. You can use digestive enzymes can help. So they're breaking down the food better so that they absorb vitamins and minerals. You can add in a variety of different broad spectrum probiotics, so supporting gut health. The reason why I'm hammering gut health is because like 70 to 80% of the immune system is in the gut. And so if we have poor quality gut health, it's going to affect everything else. So probiotics, digestive enzymes, gut support, we're making sure we're on an omega-3 essential fatty acid. So we need extra. So this is where adding in a supplement would be ideal to increase that level if you're not already doing it. This is where I'd be adding in things like medicinal mushrooms. You can either cook them, but I'd be adding in probably a supplement to increase the dosage. Real Mushrooms is a great brand. And then I'd be looking at potentially even doing something like a golden paste. So this is where you take like turmeric, or you can even use curcumin supplement. That has a lot of great anti-cancer properties. And a lot of great anti-inflammatory properties too. With skin allergies, ear infections, that type of stuff, there is a supplement called PEA, palmitoyl ethanolamide. A big long word, but PEA, like P, but PEA. And that's a fatty ester that actually works on the same system that CBD does, the endocannabinoid system, to help rebalance the body. And it helps reduce inflammation. It helps with allergies. It helps with joint inflammation, nerve inflammation. So that could be something you add in also. The final thing specific to mast, so that protocol right there is a great general protocol for most cancer patients if you're worried about cancer. With mast cell tumors, these produce a lot of histamine. So histamine is what creates the redness. This is why a lot of these get really red and angry. Sometimes they break open, they change size. That's the histamine. So we can use natural antihistamines. This would be something like your quercetin with bromelain. That's a great natural Benadryl. So rather than using Benadryl, I go to like quercetin and use that. So that way you're reducing the histamine response and the histamine overload that's in the body. But I would say that's a great starting place if you're not currently doing those things, Tina.
I think of everything you mentioned, I'm familiar with whole food sources of all of them, the omega-3 fatty acids, the probiotics. Digestive enzymes, are they, I know our bodies, our dogs, they produce those naturally. what's the most effective way to get enzymes? It's almost counterintuitive, right? Because they're supposed to be live. Where do they come from?
Yeah, so your digestive enzymes are typically they're going to be produced by the pancreas. So if there's any issues there, and a lot of times too, as these pets age, they're not producing as much digestive enzymes. And so I typically, this is a starting place for a lot of my patients is supplementing it, and it makes a huge difference. So you can use I mean, like, Adored Beast has some great products that you can use that have digestive enzymes. You could also use, I mean, quercetin with bromelain. Bromelain is a digestive enzyme, but it comes from pineapple. So some people
Mhm.
will use like papaya, and so there are natural sources of your enzymes. Some people will use like raw goat's milk too. You're getting the beneficial enzymes, but you're also getting the beneficial bacteria. Um, but if you're worried that it's not working or it's not responding, this is where I go to like either human supplements that are going to have like your lipase, your proteases, those types of things. Because sometimes too, with these chronic health issues, the stomach acid, like the pH, is not low enough to actually activate the digestive enzyme. And so
Mhm.
that could be a big problem too. There's a baking soda test. It's not super scientific, but there's a baking soda test that's easy to do. It's cheap. And what you can do is you can take like a teaspoon of baking soda and mix it with some water and give it to your dog and wait 5 minutes. And if they burp, with like see how long it takes for them to burp. If it takes them almost 5 minutes or they don't burp, they have usually low digestive enzymes. So you actually want to supplement those. So that's something that you can
Oh,
do. Just like little science. It's like the volcano, right? That so many
yeah,
of us did as a child, where like you mix it all together and it like bubbles. So you're not going to do that to your dog, I promise, but it's supposed to make them burp, so you get a better idea of like what the stomach acid is doing, and get a
sure.
better idea of how well digestion is working.
And does that potentially mean that their stomachs are not acidic enough? The pH level isn't low enough to break down and
Correct.
absorb. So it's almost like you're feeding these foods, but the body can't absorb and use it.
Exactly. And that's also why we see a lot of pets that have like acid reflux too. You
Mm,
know, that's
mhm.
it. So that baking soda, if you're seeing signs of acid reflux where they're licking a lot or they're just like extending their necks, they're super uncomfortable. We're seeing they vomit before eating, especially in the morning, that bilious vomiting. This is where doing that test to get an idea, and then starting with like soothing and healing and using things like slippery elm, and like there's a lot of ways that you can help heal the gut, of course.
Right, through food.
Yeah.
Wow, so helpful. What an interesting live. Just to clarify before we move on to the next question, all of those foods that you mentioned, omega-3 fatty acids, probiotics, digestive enzymes, turmeric paste, you talked about that as a cancer protocol for your patients that come to you. Is
You can
that
use it.
something we can just do? Like, should we just be adding these things into our dog's food?
You definitely can. Now, with your turmeric, just be if like there's any worries about like so if your pet's going to need surgery, you definitely want to stop that because it can thin the blood. So you don't obviously you want clotting to be working if you're getting surgery done. So that would be one. And I would also rotate them so you don't have to keep them on it every single day. But a lot of people will do like they'll make a batch of the golden paste and they
Yeah,
just add a little bit to the food, and it's a great anti-inflammatory, and it supports gut health too. So you can definitely use all of those. I mean, you might as well support all the systems, right? And then just
sure.
do the rotation so you're giving the body a little bit of a break but supporting it at the same time.
Got it. Okay. Question from our friend Trooper Hughes. Thoughts on cannabis usage as part of your cancer or general pain management protocol? My holistic vet was very much against it, as she said it is a neurotoxin, but they'd
Hmm.
love to get a second opinion from you.
Yeah, so I use a lot of CBD. So CBD is the non-psychoactive component of the cannabis plant. So in terms of using like the whole plant, you definitely can. I have a lot of colleagues that will do consultations on how to appropriately dose it. The biggest thing for people here is like the cannabis your pet can get high from using cannabis. I've seen it. It can be quite scary, but it also has a high therapeutic index. What it means is that it is really difficult to actually like kill a pet with cannabis. They just get they can be like comatose essentially. And
Sure.
so, which is a huge risk. So it definitely can be a really good adjunct to your pain management protocol and also for cancer treatments. You just want to work with someone that knows how to safely dose it. And there's people out there that do that. I don't know. I'm not sure about the neurotoxin thing. So it works on the endocannabinoid system, which is the system that helps maintain like homeostasis and balance in the body. And it's working on different endocannabinoid receptors. So there's CB1 and CB2 receptors in the body that are going to be like in the brain, or they're going to be located in the gut. They're located throughout the body, and that's how it works. So it actually binds to those receptors, and then it actually creates like a hormonal response to that. So I wouldn't call it a neurotoxin. I'd want to see more info. Like, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I haven't seen that. So I would just say trooper 100%, like find someone that you can partner with to get help with the dosing. But for other people who don't want to go cannabis, CBD is a great option. And it can make a huge difference. It was a huge player in Finn's treatment, my own dog. He was on a really high dose of CBD, and it helped manage his seizures. He had 2 torn cruciate ligaments that we did not do surgery for either. And he was a German Shepherd. He was 75-pound German Shepherd, and we were able to manage that. CBD was a huge part of that. It helped his aging body. He was a almost 12-year-old German Shepherd. So it can be really, really beneficial. You just need to make sure you're using a good company, and it's being sourced appropriately. It's being tested for heavy metals, and you're using the right dosages too. I see a lot of people throw away a lot of money on CBD treats, and it's a super low dose, and it's like literally doing nothing for your pet. Like the dosage that they would need would literally have to be the entire bag of treats. So just make sure that you're getting help with that. There's Vet CS is the company that I use for a lot of my patients, and they do consultations with you. So you can always call them, and they're fantastic. They have great customer service and a great organic product.
Yeah, I have read that about CBD treats, and that it's really more effective to get the tincture to put on top of a treat as opposed to something that's been baked in.
Yeah, and I mean, if people want to use those, it's more for like your anxiety cases
Mm,
where it wouldn't be like separation or like, we're going into fireworks season, right? Like this would be something where they're a little bit nervous, right? We want to use CBD to kind of help calm them, chill them out. And they can work pretty well for that, but it's a lower dose that's typically required for anxiety. And I'd rather spend my money on a tincture where make sure it's full spectrum, not
mhm.
an isolate. That tends to work better because the plant is actually working synergistically together. So you're getting all of the different cannabinoids. So it's a good broad spectrum. But then you can put it on like a liver treat or some tasty treat. And
Yeah,
this is how I get cats to take it too. Like put a drop on a liver treat. So, and they usually take it that way.
yeah, good to know. It's a whole nother world feeding cats. They're just so much smaller.
Cats are a different world. They are. Dogs, I have to say dogs are so much easier. I have 3 cats, so but I love them dearly, but they are a different beast.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Do you have any recommendations to get omega-3s and 6s into an animal with a fish
mhm.
allergy?
Yep. So Adored Beast has a new algae oil that works really well. So it's called Potent Sea, like sea as in the SEA, so the ocean. So I would highly recommend. I use it with my cats. I rotate with Nordic Naturals and obviously like sardines and whole food sources too. But I would, with a fish allergy, just go for your algae oil, and Adored Beast is a great product.
Awesome. This is one from our team. What are the signs to bring your dog in to be seen? And how soon do these signs appear in regards to the stage of cancer?
Okay. So I am all for preventative. So if we can, like we said earlier, the problem is that we don't always see symptoms until like we have a major issue. I see a lot of patients that they don't know what's going on. And I'm like, this is a good place to be in. I don't want you to be at like end stage where we now have a name to the disease. So this is where it's really important to find a vet that you feel comfortable with, at least for conventional care, where you can get routine blood work done. The reason for this, so full panel, like you're doing CBC, biochemistry, urinalysis, and I highly recommend doing that every single year. If you can do it twice a year, even better. The reason why is that you want to track trends. So if the kidney values are increasing, but they're still within reference range, that can clue you in that there's a problem. Same with the liver values, same with like hematocrit, so your red blood cell count. And you get your urine, is it concentrating? You get such a better idea before waiting for, like, I always talk about the metaphor, like it's like falling off a cliff. It's so much harder to climb back up the cliff, right? So if we can avoid falling off the cliff, that's what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seeing, we all know our animals, right? We know they're normals, usually, unless you've just like adopted or brought in a new pet. But when you have their normal, if there are things going on that are not their normal, their decreased appetite, their decreased energy, maybe they're panting more, maybe they're isolating away from you at night, they don't want to go upstairs, you're noticing. So one of the things to monitor is, what's their normal gum color look like?
Mm.
That's a great one, especially with cancer and the worry with like the spleen hemangiosarcomas. Getting an idea what's normal before your pet's sick can make it easier. Also, what you can monitor too is you can just lift up the gums and press on the gum and hold it and then release it. And that's called a capillary refill time. And the color should come back within 1 to 3 seconds. So if it's like sticky or it's pale or there's any worries there, that's not normal. That can be a sign that something's going on. So getting a good baseline for your pets prior to them being sick is ideal. But if you're seeing any signs like that that are out of the ordinary, what you can always do, if they're doing okay, like that's not critical where they're like collapsed on the ground, not responding to you, obviously go straight to the ER or your vet. If they're open, call them and let them know that you're coming. But if you want to wait a day, if you need to wait 2 days, I wouldn't wait longer than that, because there's a lot of things that you can get them started on or support them, and you just don't want to wait. And also the stress, we talked about how stress directly affects your health too, and your pets feel this and they absorb it. If you're stressing about it and you're super worried, just call your vet and ask them what to do.
Yeah.
There's never any, you're never going to regret taking your pet in for something. You will always regret if you waited and something happened.
And didn't go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
A follow-up question to that is, let's say, unfortunately, we do receive a cancer diagnosis. Will switching to a fresh food diet, a raw diet, after you've received that, will that help? Will it make a difference?
So a lot of, especially if you're going through chemotherapy, a lot of vets will say don't do a raw food diet. I have plenty of patients that were on raw food and stayed on raw food or switched to a raw food diet. This depends on the individual. So if, say, you're dealing with, say, like a GI lymphoma, or they have a lot of diarrhea, from Chinese medicine, we call it like a spleen qi deficiency. And there's just more weakness in the intestinal tract and the digestion, they may not tolerate a raw food diet. So this wouldn't be the time to start that. Raw diets tend to be very cooling energetically. And so if we have a weak pet, this is why some of these pets don't do well with raw food diets. And also too, the microbiome, if it's way out of balance, and we go from like a kibble to a raw food, think about the bacteria, and
Sure.
they're the ones digesting it. And this is why we see a lot of GI upset. So if you're looking at doing that, I would always say transition slowly into that, support the gut health, do those digestive enzymes, do a probiotic. You can use things like slippery elm, support leaky gut, and then get them onto the fresh food. But if you can get them off of, like, you want low carb. So cancer cells feed off of sugar. High carb diets, so kibble, processed food diets, are full of starch. Starch turns into sugar. Cancer cells eat sugar. So that's why you want, like, you'll hear about like ketogenic diets and things like that. You don't have to go to a ketogenic diet, but you need to get the carbohydrate content down. Your only carbs are going to be things like your really high quality vegetables, so like blueberries, the cruciferous vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
those are technically some carbohydrates, but we're using those for other purposes. But ideally, if we can get them off processed food, we need to.
Yeah. Is there a rare time where you do recommend kibble?
No. I mean, I have patients that are on kibble because it's just like I don't want to ever shame people for being on kibble. That's where like, okay, at least add in fresh food toppers. Like do that for me, please. Like,
Yeah.
and I always tell people too, if they are feeding a kibble diet, we will have limited healing results.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just part
No,
of it. Like, so that's an
I'm with
expectation I
you
set up. Yeah, you have to set that
100%.
up.
Yeah.
So,
People always ask, if you had to feed a kibble, what brand would you choose? And I'm just like, I wouldn't.
well, so I mean, it's hard, but this is where, I mean, typically your big brand kibbles I hate. Like I've come to like just through learning what's in them, how their ingredients. I mean, this is where learning to read ingredient lists. Are they using ingredient splitting?
Mhm.
Like the salt rule? Like there's different things. And I have information on our site too, and our blog post, and I'm sure you do too, on like how to read an ingredient list. But that's where you can at least go through an ingredient list and get a better idea of like, okay, how much are they trying to trick me? For one, I never like that. Like, they put cranberries at the very bottom, and there's probably
Right.
like a little like tiny, like
And that's
maybe
where
like,
our eyes are drawn to, right? The
yeah,
beginning
you're
and the
looking
end. We're
for
not
fresh
reading all that
food.
other stuff.
Yeah, you're like, I recognize that. And you're like, oh, I don't know about that other stuff. It must be vitamins and minerals. And there could be things like canned food, like your carrageenan, which is a GI irritant. And they're loading it by ingredient splitting with your corn and things that are
Right.
heavily sprayed by glyphosate. So those are ingredients you don't see, right? The chemicals. You don't see the advanced glycation end products. You don't see all of the like the rancid fats that are sprayed onto the kibble to make it edible, because
Right.
dogs won't eat it right off of the assembly line. Like that's the crazy thing. Like what the heck? So yeah, it's if you need to do something, like try to get at least a freeze dried. It's going to be better than nothing.
Yeah.
Or your lightly cooked pre-mades if you're too scared there's so many brands out there now. Like that's
Right.
the nice thing compared to a few years ago where there was nothing.
Yeah.
So there's options. And if you
There.
can't do it all the time, try to get a few fresh food meals in, right? So
Yep.
even if they're unbalanced, it would still probably be better.
Better
Like
than
just
feeding a
a few.
processed
Yeah,
food. Yeah. I
exactly.
always encourage people to just learn everything you can. And we really try to make it not so overwhelming. That was my goal with hosting these series of lives, to be able to just say, you can do it. We're normal people having conversations about taking care of our pets. And really, it's just living a healthier lifestyle for ourselves and sharing that so we have a longer life
Yeah.
with them.
I know.
Well,
That's
this
what we all
hour
want,
flew
right?
by so fast. I cannot believe it.
I know, I know. It goes by quick. I mean, we could stay here all night, but
Yeah,
it's,
yeah. Well, we are
you know.
going to, but we're going to have to see you guys later.
Well, and I love this, and I love like all the people showing up live, and there's what I love about this is that so many pet parents are so invested in learning and implementing too. And, I think the biggest takeaway from that, like I want to leave people with is, you know, keep it simple. Start with one small thing. If it's just adding in fresh food, or if you're already feeding a raw food diet, maybe that's where you start rotating in some of these other foods that we talked about that are going to support the detox pathways and things like that. And I always go back to like 5 easy things. I talk about 5 pillars of health. And this is a great way to kind of like generalize the overall health of your pets and to look at these different categories to rate yourself how well you're hitting them. Physical health, right? Your gut health and nutrition, your immune health, your emotional health, and your environmental health. So you can always start with like physical health. Are we walking? Is my pet at a lean body weight? Gut health and nutrition. How well am I supporting gut health? Am I getting variety in the food? Are we using fresh food? Maybe we can increase that a little bit. Your immune health. Okay, are we reducing like vaccinate? We didn't talk about that.
Mhm.
Vaccines and like asking for vaccine titers. How are we supporting the stress response? Like, remember, all these are interconnected. Your emotional health. How well are you addressing your stress? Are you taking care of yourself emotionally? Because if you're not, your pet's going to try to do it for you and absorb all that. And then your environmental health. This is where you can look at every time you wash the dishes or you wash your clothes, turn that around and take a look at the ingredient list and see how clean the products you're using are, and start substituting if they're not. Look outside. Oh, maybe I can pick these weeds by hand rather than spraying them, and you can start looking at how well you're ticking those 5 pillars of health off. And each little step adds up to such a big change for overall health. So that's kind of how I look at it, to try to like simplify things to make it a
Yeah,
little bit easier to break down for people.
definitely. So helpful. Thank you so much, Dr. Katie, for joining us today. Our followers can find you at The Natural Pet Doctor.
Yeah, so you can go to thenaturalpetdoctor.com. We also have a YouTube channel, so Dr. Katie Woodley, the Natural Pet Doctor. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and then we also have programs to help guide you through those 5 pillars and give you support too. So if you need extra help, you want a community, weekly Q&As with me, definitely reach out and we can get you set up.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great night.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye.